Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Architect's Maze and we're going to be starting a new series on starting a course from scratch. Basically, we're going to try and cover as many things as we can. It's going to be basically aimed at newer to beginner designers. The process we go through when we're setting up a course, the things that we do to make it easier. All the little things that I see asked many times on Facebook about how you do this, how do you do that, how would you start a course. So we're just going to go through it and show you how I would do it personally. There's many other ways you can do it. There's no right or wrong. I find that this method works for me. So this is how I go about it basically. So first thing we're going to do is obviously we've gone to design and we've got a new course and it brings you to this page. So we're going to start off with choosing our theme. The first theme that came to mind for me when I thought we could do this little series, and we're going to create a plot and we'll just keep doing episodes on this plot. So my first one was I wanted to try this new temperate one. So we're going to click on temperate. That's going to load in our theme. Okay. And we're going to click on terrain. Now what I like to do is set everything to 0 basically. It's going to clear out the whole plot, make it completely empty and sparse and just flat green board to work from. So we'll put that all to 0. Press apply. All we're going to be left is with a few patchy bits of water, as you can see, and then the fairways and greens. So now we're going to take all those out. Number of holes we're going to put to 0. Fairway width 0. You will have to do this again in the game, but for now we're going to put everything to 0. You should see all those start to disappear now. We should just be left with a blank canvas. Now that's all set to 0, we can click continue. That's going to load up our screen. Now, the first thing you can really decide is your backdrop. What sort of backdrop do you want? Do you want something with lots of water? Do you want mountains? Do you want water on one side? I'm not too sure of the temperate theme because I haven't used it before, so we'll learn on this one together. Those mountains look a bit funky for my liking, so I'm going to steer away from those. But that has got a tiny little river running through the back by the looks of it, which is quite cool. But down low, they look a bit funky, those mountains, so let's try something a bit flatter. A little bit too flat maybe. Let's try the next one. Should just start to raise the mountains up a little bit. That's quite cool for now. At the end of the day, we can change this at any point in our design. I don't want to go for anything coastal or trying to create coastal holes really, because it's just going to be more difficult and a lot more work involved. If we can keep it simple and go through all the basics, then we can cover quite a lot with this. So next thing I'm going to do is raise the plot. So we're going to go along the bottom to sculpt, landscape tools, and we're going to go raise. I'm going to pick a square and I'm going to make it as big as we can, and then I want to raise it probably about 60 foot. I'm not intending to have a lot of elevation on this course, just to keep things more simple, but it's always easier to raise up a plot and work downwards than it is to start from scratch and try and raise up, because basically you've got nowhere to go. If you start on 0 and you do want to dip down a certain area, then you're just going to hit water level and you've got nowhere to go. So we've got 60 foot of play here within our course. All these edges are going to taper away. Okay, so that's fine. We can do whatever we want with those, but we'll keep that for now. Now we're raised up. So basically what that means is if we go to landscape flatten, pick a circle, go like that. It's on 0, we flatten that 0 area out, and if we drop down there you go. Where did the water start? It should start about 60 foot, so yeah. 65 foot, we're hitting water. So we've got that much elevation gain within our course that we can lower something down to before we hit water. Okay, so we'll just put that back. That will just push square, and that resets it. Anything you do, if ever you're not sure, you can just square it and it'll go back. So if we do that again, do any particular shape, we'll pick the circle again, drop it down, hit X, it will sculpt that shape. Well, we don't like it, we'll just push square and it's gone. Okay. Next, what I would like to do is look at lighting, really. See what we can do with that. Think about the sort of course you're going to have. Are you going to have a course that's got lots of trees? Is it going to be an open course? Is it going to be tree line fairways, tight? Obviously, if you're going to do trees and you're going to have it pretty tight, you want to avoid casting shadows, really. So you want to keep the sun quite high. If you've got quite an open course, like a link style course, where you're not going to have many trees or many things blocking greens or things like that, you can afford to dip the lighting down a lot lower and have it a lot darker, which is going to cast nice shadows on the undulations and things like that. But for this course, when we look at the trees we're going to be working with, it's those sorts of trees. If we add trees in now, so if we go along the bottom, we go to environment settings, go to terrain settings, and then go to 100. We'll see what type of trees we get on the plot. So we've got some pines in there, we've got some cedars, some smaller pines, things like that. Maybe a few oaks in there. So we've got a nice variety of trees to work with, but we're going to put that back to 0. And we're going to have a look at a bit of a lighting and weather first of all. I like to do that because it sort of sets the scene for me and sets the mood of what I'm trying to create. So let's get it out of the way early. If we look at the way our course maybe wants to be running, is there a particular view that you like more than any other? Now we've chosen quite a bland sort of backdrop, really, so with the fact that there's going to be quite a few trees on the course, the views don't really matter too much to me. I just want to work out where the sun is, really. So you go to inclination and we can spin the sun around. So that's raising it up and down. So orientation, we can move the sun as it goes around. So you should see it start to creep around the screen. It's behind us at the moment, so let's turn around and find it. Right there. Now there's no sun. Now for me that gives quite a nice little view across the back there with those clouds, and we turn around this way, the sun is now in our face, so we're aiming towards it now. Behind us we're getting a darker texture because we're looking away from the sun. So do you want to start your course off into the sun, or do you want to start your course away from the sun? At some point you're going to be crisscrossing and moving your plot around, so some holes are going to be facing, some holes aren't. So really on an open course like this, like I say, I'm going to keep the inclination reasonably high, so we'll probably keep it around the 36 mark, really. The orientation we can change at any point, it's not a major issue really with orientation. If you're looking at things like you're putting big mountains or you're putting big hills on your course and you're looking at casting shadows where you don't want to, you can change the orientation and it's obviously going to move those shadows around so you're not hitting any problems. But for the sort of course we're going to do for this basic sort of tutorial series, we're just going to keep it quite neutral, keep the sort of midday sort of lighting, but I do want to add some weathering. So we go to weather next. You've got set weathers you can have there, so you can choose one if you want to make your life easier, or you can choose your own weathers basically. So I don't really want any fog, so we're going to set that to 0. Haze you can mess around with. It's obviously going to set a haze in the background and a haze on the course itself. Once you get above 50, it starts to really affect the hills in the distance, so be careful of that. Normally I would like to keep it around the 20-ish mark, but that depends on how dark you have the course, because this is going to be quite a bright course. We'll just set it, say, around 40 for now. We can play with this as we go. All this stuff often gets changed during designs for me. Once I start to sort of build up the course, you're looking at setting atmospheres and moods and how dark you can actually go. You can adjust all this sort of stuff later. But for inspiration to start off, so we're not just looking at a really sort of bright contrast, really high sort of look to the course, I'm going to set some clouds. So clouds next. Height doesn't really matter too much. If you're looking at something again, you won't see too much change within the height. If you've got high mountains and things like that, you'll notice it more, but on this sort of course I don't think you're going to see it too much. Your first cloud lower, first cloud later. Type. The darkest ones is the nimbostratus, really. That sort of really darkens up the course quite a lot, as opposed to many others, and you'll start to get the shading coming across. So we can see we got a big cloud, nothing on the left, big one down the middle and a bit on the right. Now obviously when the winds are set high on your course, that is going to change. That cloud cover will move and shift, and you'll start to get darker spots in lighter areas, and it moves around a lot more. You can go for something that's a lot more sort of covering, as in purely overcast. Keeps it a little bit more even. If you start to have the lighter cloud cover, it's a bit brighter, but some of these other ones will darken it up quite a bit, and it already starts to set a bit of mood. Now for me, having this darker setting like this, it gives the backdrop more depth. If you see the first line of hills there, they're quite bright, and the far ones are really misty. Doesn't really add a lot of depth to that. But as soon as you go like that, you can start to see that those nearer hills are actually quite a lot nearer, and it already sets off a nice little bit of mood. I can see some nice blue sky up there with some fluffy clouds, so we'll keep that one for now. The size of the clouds is obviously pretty self-explanatory. We can change those and shift those around, make them smaller, small little pockets of clouds, or big sort of fluffy white clouds, but I'm going to keep that around the middle for now. The sharpness is just going to be the edges, so they get more fluffier as it gets lighter. You won't notice it too much. It's pure how you like it with that, really. The rain clouds, you can add in some darker clouds, but again you won't notice it too much. Just the bottoms get a little bit darker in places, and that's that one. So we're going to keep rain clouds to 0. We're going to keep the size in the middle. We'll keep the sharpness at 100 for now. We've set 25% clouds. We can then go for a second cloud layer and do the same thing again. Start with the type. Choose a different cloud shape this time, so something that's not as dark as that. So if we go autocumulus for now, we'll try it, and we will go cloudiness. We'll just set it to around 50 and see how much changes within the darkness of the course. So we're starting to get it to drop there. We're getting quite dark now, up to 100, and we're really dark. Now it's a much more consistent lighting, but to me we've lost a little bit of something in the darkness. Is too dark for me. We want some light creeping through. It's the light that gives you the depth. See how that in the distance there, those hills, if I do that, it just looks like one solid hill, but as soon as we start to dip the light in, we can see a little difference in the texture of the hill colours there. It's casting shadows and light spots are creeping through, and it just gives it a little bit more character. So already we've got a nice little bit of cloud cover there, and we've got a little bit of light creeping through here and there. So we'll set that at 75, keep that there, and our first cloud layer was 25. Okay, now if I go back to the second cloud layer and then just pick the type again, we're on auto cumulus 1, so if we change it to this one for example, it's a bit brighter again. This one will be darker. These ones should all just be bright. That's really bright with a setting that's quite dim all the way around. I think the first one we chose was quite nice, that it's giving us a nice neutral light in there. We're not too dark, we've got bright spots when we need them, and we can control it. So I'm going to keep that like that for now. Let's go back to hazes on 40. We've got no fog, but if you ever want to add fog, it's the ceiling that you want to look at first of all. Keep it say around 50 to start, and as you bring your fog up, you'll see that it starts to kick in at around 30 or 40, and then it'll just start to dim. Now what it really does is it dims the background more, and you're losing something there. Now on the coastal courses or on a fantasy course and something mountains and things like that, it really sets it off. But on something like this, I want to keep it quite neutral. So obviously if I put it on 100, we're going to go full fog. We can bring that fog level down. When it's on 0, it's going to be there. As we raise it up, you're going to see it come up through the trees in the distance. You'll start to see a little line appear. That's our lowest level really, where it starts to take effect, because we're 60 foot up in the air already from raising our plot. And then it'll just creep up basically. Now if you have it too low, your shot will go above and you'll come back down again. It can cause like a weird effect when you're playing the course, so just be careful of that. We're not going to have fog, so we're going to switch it off and switch it all back to 0, 0. Okay, so we've set a little bit of a mood at the moment. Again, we can change the clouds as we see fit, but that's a start. Now if you go down to terrain settings again, you can start adding things in really. I mean, I don't want to add in trees because it just gets in the way at the moment, but we can add in grass. We can have a look and see what sort of grass it is and how much we actually get. We're not getting a hell of a lot across the course, we're getting little bits and bobs. For me, let's look at it really. We don't really need too much of it. Let's have a look at the plants. Yeah, they just look odd. Don't like those at all. Taking them out. And I'm going to take the grass out for now. You can always add it back in afterwards once you've started designing a few holes and just see how it looks and see if it works. If you look at hills, let's have a look at our terrain from a lower level and see what hills does. There you go. We've set our hills to 100 now. It started to shape in some hills for you there. Now most designers that I know will pretty much set that to 0. If you're looking on a big expansive plot and you want to start having a real undulating course, that maybe like a links or something like that, again, that you want to have lots of elevation and change, then it's good to have some hills on, and you can just smooth out fairways and areas you want to work with and leave the rest of the plot with plenty of movement in it. But for this course we don't want to be doing that, so we're going to be setting hills to 0. As you can see, we've already got a little bit of undulation and messing around, and now which we'll be smoothing out as we sculpt our course. So you're thinking, where's all the holes gone? A lot of questions I see are, why does my heavy rough or fairway come when I start to create a hole? So the reason why that is, you've got to go to rough settings. Let's start with tee box first. Tee box size, set it to 0. Tee box shape is irrelevant because we've just set it to 0. The texture and the tee box width are irrelevant because we're going to create our own tee boxes. Tee box markers and tee colours we can choose later, but I always set that to 0. I like to have full customizable control over the course. So again, fairway width, that's set to 0, and then we've got all the different firmnesses, the rolls. Fairway start, let's set that to 0. The edge we can have wavy or straight, let's set that to 0 because we're not going to auto gen anything, so we don't need it on there. And fairway bunkers, we're going to have none, and that's fine. Okay. Next we're going to do rough settings. So we're going to get 16 yards on the light rough, we don't want that. We're going to set that to 0. And we're going to get the same with the heavy rough, we're going to set that to 0. Okay. That's pretty much that for now. Okay. That's fine. Green settings, we'll put the slope to 0. And we don't need to worry too much about that. Once we draw a green in, we can see the size of the fringe width and stuff like that, which we want to set. Know if it looks strange or how much we actually want. Bunker settings shouldn't really matter now. That's all something we'll do when we start working on bunkers. We'll see about how much depth we want and lip depth and lip stiffness and all that sort of stuff, but we don't need to worry about that right now. So when it comes to routing, I do it obviously a different way to other people. Lots of people will do all their routing first, work out where they want to put each hole and start drawing it out, and then do their planting last. I tend to do it a little bit differently now. There's no right or wrong way. The people that do it the other way are doing it for a specific reason. Is maybe they want to get a certain hole in a certain location, or if they've got something like a large lake in the middle of their plot, or that they're trying to route their course round, they'll work out their routing first, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a sensible way of doing it. I tend to just do one hole at a time. I have a rough idea how I want to do my routing in my head, but I just literally start from the first hole. And when I start sculpting the land, I start looking at places where holes can go and how I feel about it, and I just like to keep my options open. It keeps my mind more creative in that respect. So if it works for me, it doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you, but we're working with a huge plot. There's nothing in the way of this plot that's going to be a problem, as in we haven't got big lakes or areas that we need to try and work out. All we know is we're going to start off on 1 and we're going to want to end up 18 back near the clubhouse by 1. So the size of the plot is huge. Once you start doing the first hole, you'll realise how much room you actually got, and routing doesn't really become an issue. So I'm going to start the first hole. I don't tend to measure, but we're going to come in quite a way. Now for the sake of this, so people can have a rough idea, that's 400 yards, that's one hole pretty much already, right from the edge of the plot. It's probably where I'm going to start. Probably be about the same that way as well, 426. So if we're going to start around here, we're going to have plenty of room, because I want to be able to leave something for 18 coming back this way. So I'm always going to start towards a corner of a plot. I don't really want to start in the middle. You can, but you're going to create a lot more routing sort of pitfalls, and I mean you've got all the room to work with. Like I said, it's a huge plot, but for me, being able to start over on a side like this gives me an opportunity to know that I've got room all the way here, I've got all the room to go this way, and I've still got the rest of the plot to work with. So I'm only really focusing on having 2 holes, say one this way 18 and one this way 1. The rest I can work out as I go. So the next thing we're going to do is go to create a hole, click on that. Our first waypoint is going to be our tee box, so I'm looking at doing a hole around 470 yards. So we'll click on that. We'll put our first waypoint down between 270 and 310 really. You can do it, but I always tend to do it about 295. That's our first waypoint. Our second waypoint is going to be where our green is. So if we're going to do a hole that's say around 475, we can knock it up to about there. Slight dog leg to the left, so we can just set that to there and click on that. So now we've got tee box. The view we're going to get off the tee when we're looking is the first waypoint, and the second one, and the last waypoint is the green. Okay, so that's that. Now because we've turned everything off, we're not going to get any of those rough, heavy rough tee boxes, greens, anything going on. So we can start to smooth out an area now. So if we go to sculpt, landscape, flatten, choose a nice soft brush like this one, dip it down a tad, and then just make it that sort of size, about the width of our fairway is going to be, so we can just start flattening an area out from where we want to put a fairway roughly, and then we can just tweak as we go. But this is going to take away all those nasty knobbly undulations that we've got in the course at the moment. When we get to the end, we should be able to see a smoother area to work with straight away. You can see that up there. We've got a nice smooth area to start with. Then we're going to put in a tee box. So we're going to go landscape, flatten. Depending on what sort of tee box we want to do, we could probably draw it in first. So for this style of course, we're going to keep it simple. So we're going to go create surfaces. Now you can use two different surfaces for a tee box. You can use green or you can use fairway. I tend to normally use fairway. I just prefer it for some reason. It makes no odds, they both do the same job. Now you can either spline it or you can brush it. For the purpose of this, we'll just brush it in. So we'll go for a rectangle style shape so we can get two tees on there, keeping it nice and simple. And we'll put that in there, just check it from above, make sure it looks decent within the lines, looking straight. Keep it down, just put that in. Now we've got that for a start. We can get two tees on there, we can move this waypoint back. Now the difference with doing it like this is nothing will move with it. So if I had a tee box that was auto-genned, if I moved that it would move the tee box with it. But now I can just do that and it will keep it there. That is my tee box. Okay, so now for example, if we want to add the second tee, we hover over the square, go to red tee, click on it, and it will say add tee. Click on that and then just drag your next tee forward. Place it along the line of the previous one and we've got two tees. And so on and so on. You can keep going and add as many tees as you want. Obviously I've made that big enough for two tees at the moment just to keep that nice and simple. Two tees will cover what we need to do. So now we can go down and have a look at our shot off the tee just to see what the view looks like on the course. So we'll go play course. We'll keep my own player on there. We don't need to look at anything else, we're just looking at the view basically. So we'll go play course. Sip of my coffee. That's our view so far. Got our tee box in. Got our pin obviously off there in the distance, slightly to the left as it's doglegging left. And we've got some nice hills to the left and some hills to the right, so plenty of stuff there to look at for now. Let's come back out of that. Click on that one and go back to edit course. What I would generally do to give yourself a nice little sight line is go sculpt, go flatten, go to the shape of the tee that we planted or that we laid down in our create surfaces. Find the sort of centre and then just lift that up maybe 2 foot. You don't want to be any more than that really, because you can see we don't want to elevate the tee box too much. 2 foot will do. Click on that, because we're using the flattened one, everything will be flat on top, and we've just raised up an area now. Let's have a look at that again. A lot of what you do, especially off the tee, is obviously you're always going back to the play course or the particular hole you're on, but just as you can see what we can see, make sure we can see everything we need to. So we're up elevated nice and high now. We're only a couple of foot off, but obviously our course tapers are way below us anyway, naturally. So we're already getting a nice sight line there, looking along where our fairway is going to be and our pin off in the distance. So that's a good start. Alright, next we're going to draw the fairway. Fairways generally start around 180, I would say. So anything sort of 180, 200 at the most is a good place to start. So we go create surface, create fairway. I like to set the spline to 1.9 and spline tool. Starting off in the centre line, look at our distance at the top where we've got the green and the red dash. The green dash is obviously the tee that we're working off, the back tee. So once we get up to 180, we're now at a place where we can start our fairway. Now, being a dog leg to the left, again, a lot of people will measure this sort of thing. I don't tend to measure. I've been doing it 5 years now, and I tend to do it by eye. So sometimes I'll measure, obviously, if I'm looking at something really particular once I've drawn it in and think, is that too wide, is that too narrow? And there are rule of thumbs that you can follow, but we're carefree at the moment. We're just starting out. We're not trying to be really specific with what we're doing, so we're just creating a golf course and having a bit of fun with it. So I want to do something, it's going to dog leg left. So if you think about it, where would you rather put your hazards? Do you want to leave the right side free for people to have an easier shot, or put bunkers on the right and have the dog leg as the disadvantage? If the dog leg's a disadvantage, you're going to be doing that by sloping the fairway down so it runs off to the left, or you're just going to be doing it by putting some bunkers on the left to try and stop people cutting your corner too much. So for now we'll just keep them on the left. So we're going to start drawing our hole. We can look up from above. We're going to keep it sort of centre line, and then once we get to around anywhere, look at the top green dash line there. So as we come forward, we're going to get to about 250, 270. Okay, so now we're at about 270. These are all the sort of areas we want to start thinking about putting bunkers. So between 270 and 320. So we start cutting in. Okay, we'll come back to our centre line, come back along, and by the time we get to around 320, about there, we can start taking that back out again. Okay, we'll then bring that back along, get down low, see if you can see any interesting things on like little undulations or little areas. And for now, we're going to terminate it before the green, so we're not going to get involved in the green complex yet. We're just going to focus on the drive part of the fairway. So we've already got this sort of hill over here on the left that's there naturally. Obviously we can sculpt any shape we want, but when we're looking at above, we can sort of see that we could start bringing that fairway round through there. We're going to have a little pinch point there, come back up from above, that's fine, come back round, and we'll just bring a nice gentle sweep back round and meet up with this one. When it gets to the little green icon, we hit X and it will join the whole thing together. That's our first fairway drawn in roughly. Okay, now always when you're splining, try and put as few spline points in as you can. It helps with the getting the smoother edges. And click on that, click edit, and then click smooth spline, and it will just bring everything out a bit smoother. You can see we've got a funny shape there. So click on that, delete that point, okay, and come back to there, hit edit and hit smooth again, started to bring it back out again. It's just because we've put a lots of points in, and I was trying to show you in the simplest way. Delete point, and then go edit again on that point. Edit, smooth spline. Okay, and we can then manipulate certain points that we want to manipulate. This is why we always spline, because we can do anything. We're just basically using a pencil, and we can draw any shape we want to draw. We can bring in these little points here just to pinch things in, straighten things up a little bit if we have to. But that's how we get our nice smooth shapes. So we can see we've got a mow pattern on there. We don't want mow patterns, so if we go back to the bottom, go cool settings, go fairway settings, mow pattern, put the width to 0 and the intensity to 0, that's gone. We can now choose our fairway texture, or before we do that, click on the spline anywhere, so find the spline, click on that, X, edit, we add a secondary surface. If we want to add a light rough, or we don't want any light rough, we just want to go straight onto a heavy rough, we can click on whatever one we want. We're going to put a light rough on this course because it's going to require it, I think. There's our light rough. So once we've selected it, we can come back out. We can then select the width. So we've got it at 3 yards at the moment. Let's take it down to sort of 1.8. Let's keep going down. There you go, it's gone. So we know that we need to keep that at least. I'm going to keep it at 3. That's quite a thick light rough we got there, as in the width of it. It's a nice reasonable light rough. So you can set that to taste, but that's how you do it. Click on your spline, find any point of the spline, so there, click on it, edit, secondary width, and then you just do it from there. Okay, so we click on that again. That's our fairway so far. The next one we can do while we're looking at stuff now is choose our texture. So we go to there, fairway texture. Okay, we've got the theme default is that one. It's a nice colour, to be fair. I don't think there's too much I would really change on it. Depends on what sort of style you want. Obviously, as you change your textures, you want to look at your light roughs, because that's too bold. It was perfect for the theme. Nice little blend there. It looks really nice, but for this one, it's a bit rough. Too bright, too luminous. Looks odd. Doesn't look right. So let's just say we stick with 10 for now. Now we can go to the same thing but on rough settings, light rough texture. Now we can go to 10 again. We're going to get something that's pretty similar to what we got, but it'll be slightly darker. There you go. So that's working quite nicely as a colour, but we can go lighter if we want to. Just have a play with it. Try and pick something that blends naturally. Too dark, that's not bad, but obviously as you change your heavy rough textures, you might find that it starts to look a bit odd. So obviously there are the much darker ones. That's a bit too bright for my liking, but it's not bad. Well, I'm just going to go for the one that matches it the most, which was number 10. So we've chosen the same texture and we've chosen the same light rough. We'll keep that for now. We can always tinker with that sort of stuff afterwards, but that gives us a nice basis for a light rough. So now we're looking at this dog leg. We're going to move this waypoint, so if you hold on a waypoint, click on that, oh, we're not on it, on that, and then just drag it across. That's going to set us up sort of in the middle of the fairway more. Now if we go back to our tee shot and have a look at that, we'll see what the fairway looks like going down there. Right, here's the issue, which is a good thing to point out. We're pretty bright now, and our texture of our sky is pretty bright. I can't massively make out that fairway. I can see it if I really look, but that's not something we want. We want a nice darker texture with a nice lighter fairway. Those two colours are too similar for my liking. So if we come back out, I can see it on there, but from there it's too samey. So come back out. We're going to go to heavy rough texture. So we go rough settings, heavy rough texture, and we're going to set something a little bit darker now as our heavy rough in the distance. That's our theme default. If we went to 10, that's going to be a colour like that, which is a nice washed out dark colour. It's got plenty of texture change in it. We can definitely see our fairway now. You can choose anything, this is all personal taste, you know, but try to choose something that works well. Yeah, you can see your fairway now, but that doesn't look real in the slightest. It's a bit too green. I think that's going to be a bit too wishy-washy. I'm looking for something that's got a little bit of texture to it already, because that's just going to add depth. 20 is quite nice. I did quite like, what was the first one I had? Not that one. Was it 7? Now they're looking too washed out now. 12. A little bit too, doesn't contrast well with the fairway we've chosen. Too green. Look at 15. Not too bad, but I did quite like 20. Because we're getting all sorts of multicoloured colours in there really, and we can work with that. Again, this can all be changed at any point. So let's just set up our first tee shot and have a look at that now. Now we should at least be able to see our fairway nicely, and we can see where we're ending up. That's our first shot. Now for me, the front section around here, oh let's go up in the air, around here, it's far too raised. We can't really see past it, so I'm going to come out, I'm going to hit edit course. Now I don't really just want to start flattening everything out and making it really flat. I quite like that we've got a little bit of movement there. So all we're going to do is go to sculpt, landscape, raise, because that's going to keep the original shape of the fairway but just raise everything around the whole area without affecting the actual shape of the fairway. We start to dip it down. We'll start off, say, from the bunker and work our way backwards. So it's going to dip that shape there, bring it back a bit more, dip that shape there, and then we're going to come back in the bit between the tee box. See if that needs dipping. Not really. It's already pretty low. I don't think it's going to affect our sight line. What I want to try to be able to do is get to this area so I can see it, because that's where we're going to put our bunkers. So off the tee, we'll go back to play course. So have a look at that. We can just start to make out where that cut-in is for the bunker space we've left. But we can also see a nice little area there. So if we hit the shot, we can see where we're hitting into. It's a nice wide fairway. Bottles up as it gets near there, but what we should be doing is we should be slightly elevated down to our green now. And we should have a nice sight line in, which we've got. Cool. So let's come out of that. Now as basic fairways go, it's a good start. What we want to be able to do is we want the player to see the shot. If the player can't see the shot or can't see what he's hitting into, or one, it ruins your imagination off the tee. Anyone who's played golf, when you sit on that tee and you look down the fairway, you get that feeling of I really want to hit this shot, because it's set up beautifully in front of you. It's all laid out. You can see the hazards, you can see the areas you need to hit. You want to create that feeling when you step on a tee and be able to see everything that you need to see. As you get more advanced, you can start adding in holes where you've got blind hazards and things like that. But when we're starting off, really we just want to keep it as simple as we can. We're going to add, I think we could add possibly 2 bunkers in here, or we could just add 1 decent sized bunker. And if you look at that, let's measure that just to show you. So I don't normally measure, but I'm guessing that that's going to be around 50 yards. From that point to that point it will be 50, but from our narrowest point probably looking at about 20 to 20. So 46 yards, I mean that's a big bunker. Say we're there to there, I reckon you're looking at about 50 yards. That's half a football pitch. That's a big bunker. So let's come out of that. I think we could squeeze 2 nice shaped bunkers in there. One there and one there. And it's going to break it up and it's going to give us more of a visual. So we're going to go create surfaces. We're going to go create bunker. You can do it 2 ways. You can either spline your bunkers or you can brush your bunkers. You can pick a shape. Now, as a beginner, probably easier to pick a brush, but you don't just want to pick a brush and just use that brush because it will stick out like a sore thumb. Anybody who's been a designer for a long time will just say, oh, I know that shape, that's that shape. So you can stick a bunker in there and you can come round and you can just change the shape of it slightly by adding a second part to it. Now we've already got a different shape. You can play around with this for hours, basically creating all sorts of shapes you want with bunkers. You can have more funky bits coming off and different little kinks coming out of your bunker, and then you can make another bunker just behind it. Use that shape. Then we'll try to say we'll use a different shape here. Now this way we're only using brushes, but it's a unique bunker and no one's really going to know what shapes or how you sort of use them. If they do, good luck to them because it's not obvious. So let's spin that round. That shape there is a bit too strange for my liking, so we'll put that in there. And then we'll just get rid of that little kink in that little bit of that bunker there. Try and just bring that round a bit more. Not that shape. Let's try this one. There, say for example. Okay, so now let's go back to our play course and see what we can see. I like to be able to see those bunkers really well. At the moment we're seeing the merest little suggestion of them, so for me that's not good enough. I can see them, but I can only see that there's a hazard there. I can't see what the shape of the hazard is, how deep it is, and anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Sculpt Land, we're going to go to Raise, and I like to use this tool because it's nice and smooth and tapers everything out nice and neatly. You'll see what I mean by that. Where that fairway is lifting up now, that fairway is bringing a nice sloped, smooth sort of raise. There's nothing drastic about it. There's nothing harsh about it. We're going to bring it up a few foot so we can start to see that bunker off the tee. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come the other side and we're going to dip, say the same sort of distance, maybe this sort of shape, so we're not affecting this part of the fairway too much, but we're getting the dip in front of the bunkers now, and we'll come down, say 3 foot again. Okay, to that. Now what we want to do is, because we've lowered that point, we're going to get a blind spot about here, so if we make that bigger, as big as we can, drop that down 3 foot. Now let's have a look off the tee. Now We can see our hazards. We can see that we've got a dog leg left, we've got the dark rough and the light bunkers, and we can see that we're hitting it into this area here. We've stopped people cutting the corner too much by adding those bunkers in at that distance. They have to be forced into this little bottleneck, into that little raised plateau and down to the green. That's fine. We're going to keep it simple. We're trying to show you how to create the actual tools and the sculpting rather than trying to be massively strategic with our golf hole. There's certain things we can do, but for now we'll just keep it nice and simple for the first hole. So the next thing we can worry about on this particular hole is our colour of our bunkers, particularly bright and white. It's a little bit too much for my liking. So we'll go bunker settings, we'll go bunker textures. I quite like the ones on the last page because you can start getting a lot of texture in the actual sand itself. It brings in a lot of detail, keeps the whiteness, but you can play around with any of these. Much more traditional yellowy sand. It all depends on how you feel it's going to suit the course. Obviously if we're looking at a Highlands theme again or something like that, we're going to go for a much more yellow sand. Something in the desert, we're probably going to go for a really bright white sand. For my course and for this course that we're doing, I'm going to go something a little bit more neutral. Excuse me. We can play around with these three. Too much. We're going to settle for that for now. That's a nice neutral colour. Next thing we can do is bunker settings. You start looking at how deep we want it really. Now obviously I'm from the older versions of the designer where I like to sort of sculpt everything myself. We can set a 3.9 inch depth there. Now if we go to say that sort of depth, it's lovely round greens and stuff, that works really nicely, but if I get on a drive and I get put here, what can I do? That is far too steep and far too deep. So obviously then we can start looking at the steepness of the bunker. So it's going to work on this area. As we come down, it's going to taper it away a little bit, but not much. Let's put it back to 0 again. Let's come down here. Let's put it back to 100. It's a lot steeper. It's not working loads, but it's shallowing it out a bit. So if we're there, we're still going to have the same sort of problem. So that's my biggest issue with doing these bunkers like that. Basically the depth is too deep for me. So if we bring it back, get down and play our shot, you're going to be able to get out of there pretty much. Should have no problems. Even if you get up tight, you should be able to manufacture a shot. Now this part of the bunker here, you can see it's more pronounced, can't you? This middle area. For now, I'm going to go into sculpting a lot more detailed, but I'm just going to drop that down. Just sculpt that down a little bit. We're going to leave that for now because that is for a different episode basically. We're going to get into sculpting more. So right now let's go back to look at our tee. Look at our shot. This is the main thing we're working off at the moment, it's just our tee shot. Right off the bat, we can see our drive, we can see our landing area, we can see our 2 bunkers, and we can see off in the distance our green. We've got 2 tees, a nice wide tee box, a nice neutral sort of lighting, some nice neutral colours for the palette of the actual textures of the fairway and the roughs. Got a nice cloudy sort of sky, but it's not affecting the brightness too much. So especially when we get on the greens, we'll be able to see the green grids. Nothing looks dark. we've got a nice little effect in the distance of the light coming through the trees, basically coming through the clouds onto the trees and setting off the depths of the hills there. So coming up to 55 minutes on the stream now. We've covered quite a lot. We've reset everything to 0 basically. I've shown you how to draw the fairways, the tee boxes, the bunkers, the settings we do right at the start. We've covered that, and we've gone for a bit of lighting and stuff. Now all this can be changed as we go. As we design our course, you can start making little adjustments, little changes here and there. You might want to mess with your textures of your fairway a little bit, I think. But start off with, on a newer designer, that's perfect for what we want off the first tee. For the view, for the lightness, everything's there that we need. The view, the heightness of the tee box, we can see everything we need to see. So as a first video, first part of the series that we're going to be working on, we're going to cover all sorts of things. We're going to cover sculpting, we're going to cover greenside bunkers, we're going to cover the subsoil textures. We're going to start changing the outside of the course. We're going to start looking at obviously all the planting we do. We're going to start looking at adding features like hills around the holes. Maybe we'll even do a little water one at some point, but we're going to start going through the whole course. Now what we can do is we can start building a course as we go, but I just want to use this as a template for showing you all the different things that we can do, and we're familiar with the course. We can come back to it. It's going to be nothing different that we haven't seen, so we can just see it build and work on it together as we go with the series. So thanks for watching, everybody. I will do another episode. I'll probably do maybe hopefully 2 a week, and we'll start pumping them out and covering the different things. The next thing we're obviously going to work on is our green complex. We've got our fairway shape there, and we're running it, and we terminated the fairway off there in distance, so we can start looking at our green, how we're going to do the fairway around the green, how we're going to do the green bunkers. We'll work on all that next, so that'll be a continuation. So that'll be looking at green complexes, probably we'll call the next one, and then probably after that we'll start doing some sculpting, so we can start showing you how we're going to sculpt different sort of parts around the course adjacent to the holes, basically little areas up, little areas down that will just affect the hole and make it a bit more strategic just by raising and dipping, and I'll show you the tools to do that and how to make it look effective and realistic. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you get something out of this. Leave any comments. I can cover any questions you ask in comments, and maybe I can cover them on future episodes, so I know the things you sort of want to look at. Just let me know, and then we can try and cover them as best we can. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.